The law of attraction is the idea that what you think eventually becomes real. If you think happy thoughts, good things will happen to you, and if you think sad thoughts, bad things will happen to you. Whether the folks who promote this idea intend this or not, the effective message of this worldview is that if bad stuff happens to you, it's ultimately your fault. The law of attraction has been especially useful for multi-level marketing companies. They often indoctrinate their recruits into this way of thinking. It's very difficult to make money with an MLM because rather than earning income primarily by selling a product or service, MLMs are based on recruiting other recruits who then have to recruit their own recruits and so on and so forth. Money is made first and foremost by selling a product to new recruits and only secondarily from those recruits selling to an end consumer. This incentivizes anyone in an MLM to focus on recruiting more salespeople rather than delivering products to people who actually want them. As you can imagine, if recruiting grows exponentially, this can't go very far before any market they enter quickly becomes saturated. So unless you get in on the ground floor, you don't make very much, and even if you do get in early enough to make anything, that income isn't very secure. Since that's the case, MLMs love to promote motivational speakers to keep people from becoming pessimistic about their chances of advancement. And the law of attraction tells them to blame their failures on themselves and discourage any naughty wrongthink that might get them to question whether they can actually make a living in a recruitment-based business model that happens to be, let's say, triangular in shape. Here's Tiffany Ferg to explain further.
If you aren't making money or not making enough money, you are blamed for not trying hard enough. Babe, you just need more sales and more recruits. You're not being positive enough. It's all about the law of attraction. You have to believe that you're rich and independent and successful, and you will be.
Check out Tiffany's video about MLMs, it's great, link in the description. You also commonly see this kind of thing among more alternative hippie spaces as well. It is especially distressing that this tactic of corporate manipulation has insinuated itself in the culture of our beloved laid-back hippies. But then again, it's not uncommon to find hippies sharing articles from quack websites like Natural News. There are folks who will share any woo as long as it isn't Abrahamic, especially if it makes liberal use of the word quantum. More on that later. Part of the appeal of being told essentially that everything is your fault is that it implies that everything is in your control. If you are completely to blame for all of your problems, then you must be able to avoid them or fix them all on your own. And wouldn't that be great? The drawback, of course, is that this is a very convenient thing for you to believe from the perspective of folks who just don't want to help anybody. The I got mine, you types. The law of attraction says that you ought never think about bad things happening to you. Of course, if you don't ever think of things that could go wrong, you're less likely to prepare for them, and you'll be caught totally unprepared when they happen. I'm a very pessimistic person, but I'm also a very happy person because, for one thing, I'm never disappointed. Things always go better than I expect them to. Secondly, I'm always prepared, so even when they do go wrong, I'm usually fine, because I've expected them to go wrong and I always have a spare tire, both literally and metaphorically. I'm sure that for a lot of people, negative thoughts discourage effort, but for me, they encourage effort because they make me overestimate how difficult things are going to be, and the result is that I try harder. You can't thoroughly discuss the law of attraction without talking about the movie The Secret. This movie promotes the idea that the law of attraction is a quantum phenomenon. It's quantum woo. It takes the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum physics, which says that before a particle is observed, its location is indistinct, and the act of observing it causes it to manifest in a particular location, and it infers something that doesn't even follow, namely that thoughts not only create reality, but they create a reality that corresponds to those thoughts. The way they put it, thoughts create things. First of all, the idea that observation causes particles to manifest in a particular location is silly, as physicist Carroll here explains.
Observation makes it sound like the existence of a conscious observer is somehow important to quantum mechanics, and it's completely not. That's an utterly bogus road to go down. What an observation simply is bringing one system into contact with another.
And even if it were the case that observers created reality, that wouldn't mean that the reality it creates would correspond to the thoughts of the observer. Even if your observations caused a particle to manifest in a particular location, that doesn't mean that the observer has any control over what that location is. Thinking happy thoughts will not cause particles to appear in locations advantageous to you, nor will negative thoughts cause them to appear in places disadvantageous to you. And this idea is especially dangerous nowadays because folks who talk about it recommend that you not think about catching anything, that you shouldn't talk about catching anything, and you shouldn't prepare for it. The law of attraction is mostly supported by anecdotes from people who have no concept of confirmation bias or the placebo effect. If someone's headache goes away after they thought happy thoughts, or they fantasized about being rich and then found a Benjamin on the sidewalk, that is enough to convince them that this stuff is real. I call this the monkey paw effect. In that episode of The Simpsons when Homer finds a monkey paw which grants wishes, those wishes never turn out exactly as intended. Folks who try to apply the law of attraction and subsequently experience something that vaguely resembles what they asked for in some sense will take that as evidence that it works. I once heard someone who was pushing the law of attraction say that you have to be very specific about what you wish for, because she knew a woman who asked to be surrounded by money and later ended up working in a bank vault. She took this as proof that the law of attraction was having this monkey paw effect. The Secret and the law of attraction prey upon all of the most common cognitive errors that kids ought to be taught about and warned against in a critical thinking class. The number of people taken in by this stuff clearly illustrates how few people know about things like placebos and cognitive biases. They also play on people's vanity by telling them that they are ultimately in control of the universe, or at least everything that happens to them. This aspect of it is especially dangerous because it encourages people to forego medical treatment lest their doctor tell them something negative, and it makes them vulnerable to workplace abuse because if they aren't making the money they need, they are manipulated into thinking it's their own fault. To everyone who helps me out on Patreon, you're a big help. Thanks so much.